All right, Mr. Young,
Present.
Ms. Pumphrey,
Present.
Dr. Savoy, Ms. Tulowski,
Present.
and Ms. Frempong.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seabolt. Please call the roll of staff members on the Equity Committee participating in today's meeting.
Ms. Charlie Green,
Present.
Mr. Handy,
Present.
Dr. Berquist,
Present.
Mr. Landon,
Present.
Mr. Mustapher,
Present.
and Ms. Shea, Dr. Shea. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seabolt. The first item on the agenda is review of summer professional development, and for that, I call on Dr. Berquist and Mr. Handy.
Thank you, Mr. Young. So again, we are here to discuss our review of summer professional development. I have a few slides I'm going to cover around one of the modules that we presented for the summer PD. Before I get into that, Dr. Berquist, do you want to start with the overview?
Sure, go ahead. Okay, so we actually presented this at a board meeting recently, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but we just wanted to review that we did bring together all of our staff leadership, central office leaders, school leaders, and teacher leaders. Go ahead, Doug.
All right, thank you, Dr. Berquist. So what I'm going to get into for the next few slides is focusing on what you see there, next to the last row, the PD that we led for teachers, paraprofessionals, SEL support staff. And this occurred Monday, June 23rd. We also did a repeat session in August during Teacher in-Service Week for any staff that could not attend that PD on June 23rd. Next slide, please. So there were several modules that were covered that day. I want to highlight this particular module, which was titled Belief in Action, High Expectations in Real Relationships. And I believe we've all heard Dr. Rogers talk about our focus on high expectations. And that's high expectations educators, adults have for students, and also the high expectations that adults in BCPS, members of staff have for one another. So this particular module is really focused on high expectations that teachers and educators have for staff. And I want to give you all some highlights from that particular module. Next slide, please. So just to start, this idea of high expectations is a component of our focus on research for better teaching, which again, I know Dr. Rogers has talked about with the board. And the idea of high expectations is part of the foundational beliefs. And there's a pyramid that you may have seen, but that foundational beliefs aspect on what it means to have high expectations and believe that all students can achieve. That's really what the focus of this module was on. So we start with what you see there on the left-hand side. And that's a recognition that, strong teacher-student relationships, teachers having consistent high expectations for students will contribute to, number one, motivation for students, making students want to achieve, and then ultimately the success that students have in achieving. Secondly, in the module, we analyze the connection between student achievement and the interplay of personal relationships, identity, high expectations, and a positive classroom climate. So this is where teachers, other staff are really reflecting upon their own practice, thinking about their own identity, their identity in conjunction with the identity of each of the students in their classroom, and what this means for setting the climate in the classroom that's letting every student in that classroom know that the teacher has high expectations of them, and the teacher believes that the students can achieve, each and every student. And then another aspect of the having high expectations for students is letting students know that. And the way that's done is by the messaging between the teacher and the students. And there are some key messages that actually will relay to students how really the belief that the teacher has in them and their ability to achieve and the likelihood and the outcomes that they're going to achieve. So those are the outcomes, and then we had the reflection questions on the right-hand side, or anchor questions, if you will, for participants in this module to consider as they go through the module. Next slide, please. So throughout the module, and I've just pulled out a few highlights, we have some key quotes, and this is one. Again, this is from the book, The Skillful Teacher, which is one of the books, one of the resources offered through our partnership with Research for Better Teaching. And, the quote, "What teachers believe about their students influences what they expect of them and how they treat them." So again, this is a reflection point for participants in the module, so they can consider their beliefs about each of their students and how that really directly relates into expectations and ultimately outcomes for students and student success. Next slide, please. So I talked a little earlier about the high expectation messaging and just wanted to share some examples. So the idea is that the teachers in the classroom, other adults, other educators, as they interact with students, that they have the belief that students have the potential to achieve and that they can convey that belief to students. And this can be done through messaging. So, we talked earlier about the climate that the teacher wants to set within the classroom. So in that left column, we have the climate outcome and then some example statements. So the first, reinforcing effort over ability. So an example would be, letting the student know, you worked hard on this and it shows. And we talk about that type of statement as opposed to, statement that conveys that the student was successful because they were smart, or that the task was easy, or the task was we want to let students know that we understand the task was something that they put effort into, they worked hard on the task, and then they achieved results. So that's why we say, we're looking at the effort the student put forth, and also the outcome. So again, we're not focusing on some ability that students have when they come into the classroom. It's more so about how the student put forth effort, and as a result, receive the results of their efforts, and they can actually see it. Secondly, we talk about affirming student thinking. So an example statement, that's an interesting approach. Tell us more. So think about a student offering a response to a question, whether the student gets the question correct, if you will, right away, or, perhaps they're not quite where you want them to be in their response, or they don't demonstrate a full understanding. We want to make sure that as an educator, I stick with the student. I remain with the student, let them know that, okay, I see your approach, interesting approach. Tell me a little bit more about that. So you want students to elaborate on their answer, affirm that you affirm that the student is just demonstrating their thought process, and you want to hear more about that thought process as you work with the student to work towards the correct answer, if you will. Third, we talk about coaching, not correcting. So, let's figure out how to get to the next step. And the idea is that if a student puts forth an answer, I'm thinking about perhaps in a mathematics context, you don't simply tell the student the correct answer, whether it's math or any other content area, but coaching the student so that student can grow and move towards achieving the right answer on their own. So again, we want to make sure that we see the effort students are putting forth, we support the effort, and we want the student to be successful in the work that they're putting forth. And then lastly, an example is public and private confidence building, and that's providing specific feedback. So when I do provide feedback as an educator to a student, I want to make sure that the feedback is specific enough so there's no doubt in that student's mind what they need to do to reach success. So the feedback can't be vague. It can't be misunderstood by the student, because that's not going to serve the student well. So how do we provide messages that include specific feedback that will help a student grow towards successful outcomes. Next slide, please. So really the culminating activity in this module, and the whole module, again, I'm just giving some highlights. It was about a 2-hour module was how it was designed, with several points in the module for staff to interact with one another. We wanted each staff member to build up to this belief and action statement that would really carry them into this current school year, help them reflect and look forward on how they would serve students in a way that conveys that they have high expectations for each of their students. So the components of the belief and action statement, really 3 main components. Number one, the core beliefs. So we start with wanting educators to think about their own identity, the experiences they've had, in their education experience, and think about how that, again, helps them form these core beliefs. In addition to that, we want the educator to think about the student experience. Think about, where the student's been, what what they've seen, get an idea for how each student is showing them in the classroom. Think about, moments of success for the student, any challenges they may have had, and think about how, as an educator, you've had experiences that shape a mindset. So here we're looking at, again, how the educator looks at themselves and also looks at each student in their classroom. And then the last component is the commitments that the teacher makes. So when it comes to teaching and learning, student capability, matters of equity, what does the teacher think? What's the teacher's level of commitment? What actions are they willing to take? What culture and climate are they trying to create in the classroom? And, taking these 3 components, we've asked each of our participants in this module to create that belief and action statement to, once again, give them a focal point and a place of reflection that they carry into their school year. Next slide, please. So that concludes our presentation on our summer PD review. Again, what I wanted to emphasize is how we've set the stage, that these foundational beliefs are key in our work towards setting high expectations for all students. You'll see the work that we're doing with Research for Better Teaching is woven throughout the year, and PD experiences for each and every one of our educators. And of course, principals are involved to lead the learning in their buildings. And then as in staff and employee training and development, we continue to provide resources for the professional development to make sure this happens. So at this point, I believe we're gonna hear from. Do we want to do Q&A now, or we're gonna wait until the final presentation?
We can do Q&A now while it may be somewhat fresh and their questions may be fresh in committee members' minds.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Young. So at this point, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Young, for and committee for any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Berquist, Mr. Handy. Are there any questions from committee members about this presentation?
Hi, this is Ms. Stileski.
Yes, Ms. Stileski, please proceed.
Thank you for the presentation. I really liked the positive affirmations in that little chart to just support students' growth and not, quote unquote, like dumbing down the learning for them and giving them the answers, but putting them on the course of figuring it out for themselves. My only question was with the teacher training, with the belief and action statement based on the identity, the values, and so forth. Can you give us an example of like what the final belief and action statement would say? I'm just curious. Like taking all of that from steps 1, 2, and 3. I guess the teachers created the statement at the end. Is that what they did?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lusky, thank you for the question. Right. So, and I don't have it right here with me. I did draft a statement early in the summer, but I'm thinking about, so I'm thinking about aspects of my identity or any, the particular teacher, what aspect of their identity they want to bring forward. So I will tell you my personal story and my experience. I got into education really specifically at that time, focused on Black males. I had been doing some work in the community. I was in a previous career before I became a teacher. And in my work with some of our young Black males, I felt like they were being underserved. So I wanted to be a part of, helping them to achieve academic success. So, that was part of my identity as a Black man. Um, my values around the power of education, wanting to see that more Black boys have that experience that success, be supported, and get the resources they needed. So that would have been like around my core beliefs. And again, I'm giving you what we had them do, Mr. Lusky. We had them start off like writing their core beliefs, writing, student experience capacity, and then eventually make it a concise statement. Um, you know, for me, education has been I've benefited from I think some very meaningful and powerful educational experiences. So that's part of my lived experience around education. And then I'm committed to making sure that each and every student in my classroom experiences success, feels supported, and knows that I believe in them. So uh, didn't give you a succinct statement necessarily, but that's an example of how a teacher would actually form their statement. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Pumphrey. You're muted, Ms. Pumphrey. Do you still have a question?
Yes, and I was talking away the whole time. Sorry. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Hanley. I have both I don't know if this is more of a question or a comment, probably a combination of both. Um, I love seeing this whole presentation and how we're expecting high expectations for our students as far as academic achievement. My question is, do we also use some of this as far as improving culture in our classrooms, behavior, that type of thing, even as far as respecting teachers and the language that students are using? I think that, I think there's some notice that sometimes our students aren't learning to respect our teachers as much, some of the language that they're using, and we often overlook that because, gosh, middle school is so difficult and there's so many other things to worry about. And I think maybe we need to have high expectations as far as that is concerned as well. I recently went to a workshop that talked about, going back to old school, and initially I was not so sure what to think about that, but getting more involved in the conversation, it really what this school did was really improve the culture overall in the school by implementing these type of things. So that's my comment and partial question, if we're using this also as far as behavior issues and the culture of classrooms.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Pumphrey, for your question and comment. So my role, I guess, in presenting this information, I was partnered with Windsor Mill Middle School and Southwest Academy, and so the principals of each school were there, and they were both there, along with members of their staff. And to your comment, what came out in the discussions around the belief and action statement was a lot about modeling. So when we talk about the behaviors that you mentioned, you could see in the responses from staff, they talked about how their beliefs as educators turned into how they formed a culture and climate within their classrooms and how they model for students the behavior that was expected. So the short answer is yes, absolutely. When we talk about our educators setting forth expectations for students, right, it is around academics, academic achievement, and it is around behavior. And a lot of that, and that's why we felt so important to have teachers really reflect on their own practice and how they are actually modeling for students what they expect for them to achieve, and frankly how to achieve it, and some guidelines around that. So yes, that certainly is a part of, even though, like, again, the focus is on academic achievement always, but we know that behaviors of students are going to have an impact on these on their academic achievement. So you certainly would see that come out throughout that full 2-hour module. So yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from the committee? I have a couple for you, Mr. Handy. With this, belief and action statement that the teachers created, is this, written down somewhere? Is this like recorded on like a 3x5 note card, and then they take it with them and have it there that says, okay, this is what my belief and action statement is. How I'm going to act that way. It's a visual reminder.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Young. And Dr. Berkowitz, I saw you come on camera. Did you want to
Sure.
respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So whenever we do any exercise like this in professional learning, we always encourage the teachers to write it somewhere where they're going to be able to go back and look at it. And we actually encourage them in our facilitator guide, give them sticky notes, give them index cards, or if they're, super tech people, tell them to get out the notes feature in their phone and write it down. Because, it's important to do it in the session, but what's really important is you keep on reflecting on it and you see it another time. So that's a practice we use in the summer, and it's a practice that we use whenever we do a similar exercise.
Okay.
And Mr. Young, if I may just add to what Dr. Berkowitz mentioned, so we talk about this being a culminating activity. After each participant wrote their statement, there's actually guidance for them to circle up and share out their statements amongst their peers. So there's also this idea that it's written down, it's there, as Dr. Berkowitz mentioned, someone might record it electronically, but it's been recorded, and then to help build community amongst educators, these belief statements are being shared out. So again, as a community, this is what we believe, and this is how we take it from classroom level throughout the school as well. So that's another aspect of this activity.
Okay, and that answers my other question. Was this the first year that this session was taught, or has it been taught before?
So in this manner, this is the first year. So again, this is based on our work with Research for Better Teaching. This is the foundational aspect of that work. So this is the first year that we've developed the module in this format. I'm not saying that, Mr. Young, there could have been some aspects of this that might have shown up in some previous professional learning. I'll defer to Dr. Berkowitz on that. But this particular module, this was the first summer that we facilitated this.
Okay, and I asked that because when you had the one slide where it was talking about like reinforcing effort over ability, coaching, not correcting, like going back to your example, like with math, people can get the right answer but use the wrong process. So it's that coaching. But I was wondering, is this the first year? So since in this format, this is the first year, have you looked at or thought about any kind of follow-on or refresher that says, okay, this is what we talked about in this session, module 1. Now we want to see what worked well for you, what didn't, and how you can now reinforce that, this learning.
So, Mr. Young, I would say yes to that. Because of the way we rolled out our PD, and you've heard Dr. Rogers talk about this, we've made it available to all teachers. Also, all of our administrators were part of it. It gives us a reference point. So whether a principal wants to refer back to what the teacher put in place for their belief and action statement, how what they're doing in the classroom reflects that, or maybe does not reflect it, and use that as a coaching conversation, say between a principal, an administrator, and a teacher, or I could go in, even as a when I go to observe classrooms, I can refer to that statement as well. So to me, it gives some level setting in that regard, and it does allow us to have those conversations you talked about. How does your belief and action statement, how is it manifesting in your classroom? Is there something a teacher needs to go back and maybe consider in what they said is their belief, but it's not being demonstrated in their actions? So to me, it's and a lot of the work we did and we've been doing research for better teaching. It's so we can continuously come back to this, and this is the way we're going to operate. This is how we are going to be as a system. So that's another thing I think is so powerful about the professional learning we've put together this year. And we did start this work last year around research for better teaching, and it continued. And Dr. Berquist, I know she talked about that when she presented to the full board, and now we're continuing this year. So it certainly builds upon the work we started last summer, this summer, and again, it's something that we can refer back to as we work with teachers to support them throughout the school year.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Handy. Thank you, Dr. Berkowitz.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is mentoring support for teachers, and for that, I call on Dr. Shea.
Vice Chair Young.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Frimpong.
Thank you. I had a question about the belief statements, and if we can go back to that slide, please. Thank you. So I think it's a wonderful tool. I'm excited to hear about its use as far as professional development for the teachers amongst each other, as well as even potentially between the principal and the teachers. But what about, does this get extended to the students and or the parents at all? I guess I'm thinking about, when parents come maybe for a back to school night, or we have a parent teacher conference, and a teacher kind of even just sharing this with a parent. I think about for me as a parent, if I would have had a teacher kind of talk about these things with me, just kind of, it's a very different approach. I'm used to hearing a teacher say, "Oh, I went to this college," or "I've been teaching for so many years." But when you start to talk about, again, kind of these creating, I guess, genuine relationships and everything, like to hear about why is the teacher teaching, or what is it that they're trying to bring into the classroom, and how do they bring that authentic self to the classroom when they're interacting with their students and trying to, have students reach success. Um, I just think it's fantastic. So I guess, can you talk about that? Is this something that does get extended from the teacher to the student, or from the teacher to the parent?
So thank you, Ms. Frimpong, for the question. So I'll say in the sessions I was involved in with Windsor Mill and Southwest Academy, and that time I was co-facilitating this particular session um, with the principal from Windsor Mill. It's something that we encourage teachers to take with them throughout, to even let their students know. So I like the idea of having parents learn about it as well. It's certainly something we wanted to go beyond just their experience, in that session. It was something that, just like you're saying, it's something that we believe would be of value to really all stakeholders in our education system. So I do not know to what extent that is happening, but it's certainly something we encourage and when we presented the module.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Okay. We're on to Dr. Shea.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Thank you so much for having me here today to share about our mentoring support for new educators. As a nice segue, I will share that the module that Mr. Handy just described was also a part of our new educator orientation. So we were able to start from day one with our newest educators by explaining the importance of developing those high expectations through those positive relationships with them as well. So I wanted to offer some context. Our mentoring support for new educators is grounded in the expectations identified as part of COMAR. So COMAR actually has a section around comprehensive teacher induction and mentoring that defines who do we mean when we talk about new teachers, how are we defining new educators in Maryland, and then what are some of the expectations that LEAs have for how they're supporting our new educators. As part of Blueprint and Pillar 2, the commitment in the state of Maryland to having a high quality and diverse teacher and leader workforce is significant. And that starts with onboarding and recruiting and retaining phenomenal teachers for every classroom every day. This COMAR regulation requires that we provide 3 years of teacher induction or support for teachers who are professionally licensed and have less than 3 years of teaching experience, hold a conditional license and are in the process of pursuing professional licensure, and they also hold a resident teacher license. So these are some career changers who may be enrolled in an alternative prep program. It also requires that we offer 1 year of teacher induction for teachers who do have experience or veteran teachers who maybe are coming to us from another district. So if they do have a license and they're new to our system and fall within that window, then we do offer them 1 year of induction as well. I should note that this section of COMAR is currently open for public comment. This definition of who counts is still in the legislation, and what they're also offering is other opportunities for fleshing out exactly what those requirements are. So we're watching that process closely. You can go to the next slide. So what we're doing in BCPS, and we have made some updates this year based on who our teaching force is, and as again I mentioned, our commitment under Blueprint to strengthening that workforce. So we are using a collaborative approach that we call the New Educator Support Team, or NEST. And we love that acronym. You know, in education we love our acronyms, but this particular one seems very fitting because if you think about that nest being a place of retreat or refuge or a place of safety, that's really what we're trying to do for our newest educators. We want to make sure that they feel supported by their colleagues, supported by their coaches and mentors, and also supported by our system. And so we have 3 specific positions that we target for this new educator support team for our newest educator in their first year. And then in a moment, I'll talk about how we then expand that to be that 3-year induction plan as called for in COMAR. The 3 positions that we have currently, we have our consulting teachers. The consulting teacher position is part of the peer assistance and review team. Consulting teachers are highly trained, highly skilled individuals who work throughout the system to support our brand new educators who have no previous teaching experience. They work throughout the county and are assigned to support new educators that have no paid prior experience in teaching, so they're brand new to the profession. And they do that aligned to their areas of certification or their levels of teaching. So we have elementary consulting teachers. We also have secondary consulting teachers that work across contents, thinking STEM or some of the literacy contents, and then of course for special education. Partnering with our consulting teachers, we have our staff development teachers. So as you're very familiar, our staff development teachers are a part of our superintendent's commitment for supporting that job embedded professional learning in the building. This year, that was also with an emphasis on particularly supporting the professional growth and retention of our newest educators. So while our consulting teachers are assigned to any educator who has no paid prior experience, they also have that staff development teacher in their building who can provide that daily job embedded support for educators in that year 1, 2, or 3, as required by that 3-year induction plan. And then new this year, we have partnered with the Office of Title I to develop a position called the Educator Retention Teacher. This is a way to really be creative about using our title grant funds to provide that additional support in our communities that need them most. We have seen a pattern in BCPS that is true across the state and really across the country, that oftentimes our Title I communities are the hardest to staff, and that when we do onboard new educators, once they achieve tenure and are no longer probationary, they often leave and go to another school. And so what we know from the research is that having that consistent workforce is critically important for the success of our students. And so with this position, we're being very intentional in our Title I communities to have that additional educator retention teacher position that can supplement that staff development teacher position to make it full-time. and to be able to provide differentiated supports that we know are unique to being a new educator who's serving in that Title I community. This can include things like additional professional learning around the impacts of poverty and the brain, the idea of coordinating and liaising with community school facilitators and other resources, and outreach with parents in that community served in that school. And so the idea is that we are braiding supports so that our new educators have tiered intensive support when they are first brought into our system, but then they also have a team-based approach in that nest so that we can keep them snug and safe and supported until ultimately they're ready to fly when they move beyond that third year and hopefully into teacher leadership opportunities. It's important to note that in BCPS, and again, we are mirroring what's happening at the state and really national level. We are hiring more and more new educators who have not yet completed a program for licensure. So while we work really well with our institutes for higher education to make sure that we have strong partnerships, nationally, those teacher prep programs are much smaller than they've been in the past. And so we are oftentimes hiring career changers, new teachers who have not, who have decided to come into teaching, who didn't have a background in that teacher prep program. And so they are issued what we call a conditional license. This is a priority for our consulting teachers because, of course, we know that they require a differential level of support. When teachers come to us having been through a strong teacher prep program, they've had multiple opportunities for internships, they have developed some of those classroom management strategies, and they are often starting at a different place. Whereas when we hire someone on a conditional license, we know that they are going to need more targeted support, especially in that first year. And our goal is that through these braided supports, they feel that they have an opportunity to strengthen their capacity and develop their skill and stay with us, and envision that as a much longer career in BCPS. You can go to the next slide. And so this model of the 3-year induction, this is something that we've been working really hard to strengthen. So for many years, BCPS has had a very strong program in that first year that I talked about with those consulting teachers and having that strong support in the peer assistance and review. But we also knew that we wanted to strengthen that 3-year program so that we really keep our educators having those strong scaffolds of support and can envision a long career in BCPS to be able to have that consistency for our students. You're very familiar with our superintendent's vision around engage, empower, and excel. And so we used the same approach to think about our 3-year plan. So we think about engage. This is we're meeting our new educators where they are. So this is that intensive support right in their classroom with that combination of those 3 positions that I just described, helping them develop those classroom management strategies. And to Mr. Handy's point earlier, developing those strong relationships, both with their students and with their families, because we know that that's so critical to their success. In their second year, now we're leveraging the support of other members of the school team. These are other school-based instructional leaders. So at the secondary level, this could include my department chair. This might include at the elementary level, a reading specialist or a math instructor, as well as, of course, our school-based administrators, so that now our new educators, whereas in their first year, we're supporting them as part of just within their classroom, now we're picking their heads up a little bit and saying, and you're part of our school. And here are all the other resources we have to support you as being part of a team or a department and that school community. And then in our third year, this is when we're hoping that we are supporting our educators to excel as part of the larger BCPS community. This is also when we want our educators to start thinking about the process of teacher leadership so that they are beginning to envision a long, sustained career as educators in BCPS that have opportunities for growth without having to lead the classroom. Part of that is having them to begin to pursue this idea that is so critical in the blueprint around potentially pursuing national board certification, thinking about that career ladder. And so we want our educators to view this not so much as a job, but as a career, as something that they can commit to growing through systematic and sustained professional learning, and also opportunities for pursuing teacher leadership roles, including beginning that process towards national board certification. So now we're helping them see themselves as part of the BCPS community as a whole, and helping them to see all the different opportunities that they would have to learn and grow without having to leave the classroom where we know our students need them most. So that is really a broad picture of the supports that we offer our new educators. Many of you have attended in the past, so I know you're familiar that it all kicks off with new educator orientation. So each summer we welcome all of our newest educators through an onboarding event called New Educator Orientation, where they have an opportunity to hear from honored guests. They hear from our superintendent, of course, board members, as well as leaders across the system to understand our mission and vision as a system, but then also to receive that engaging professional learning around system expectations, which, as I mentioned this year, included that module that Mr. Handy just illustrated. They also then have an opportunity in that week to go to their school and have an orientation at their school community with their school-based leadership. And then they have an opportunity to engage with content offices in the Division of Curriculum and Instruction to have content-focused support accessing the curriculum so that they start their first day of school ready for children, having had an opportunity to plan and to think about ways that they can be most successful. Next slide. So that, in a nutshell, is the large kind of big picture of how we provide new educator supports in BCPS in alignment with COMAR. As I'm sure you can tell, we're excited about the new opportunities that we've put in place to really strengthen that 3-year process, with the hope that we can retain as many of our new educators as possible, giving them that strong start with a lot of supports for that sustainable pathway. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to describe that, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Shea.
Sure.
Are there any questions from committee members? Ms. Frimpong.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shea, for the presentation. Can you speak a little bit more to that support that is provided to the conditional teachers? That is one thing that kind of comes to my attention as far as when we have uh, new educators who are who are career changers. And so they have the full duties and responsibilities of a teacher who's a teacher coming from that education background, but they still also have that responsibility of getting things taken care of with the getting rid of the conditional piece. And so I've heard some, just concerns about that workload and needing some more support. So can you talk to the supports that are available for those teachers?
Absolutely. And thank you for the question. It is definitely an additional challenge. And you described perfectly how, they are the teacher, right? So they have all the responsibilities and expectations that come with that. And yet they're also a student because we're trying to help them engage in that process of pursuing licensure. Some of the ways that we've supported, as I mentioned, we are tiering that support. So when we have conditionally licensed teachers, they are the priority for our consulting teachers. So if you and I were both first-year teachers and you had your license and I did not, our staff development teacher is checking in with both of us, and we are both assigned to a CT, but that CT is responsible for intensifying that support with me. So that might mean more frequent visits, more opportunities for co-planning and co-teaching, and would also include support with navigating that pathway to licensure. So our consulting teachers also receive training from our Office of Educator Licensure. I work really closely with Carla Simons and Susan Stansberry in the Division of Human Resources. And so what we've done, especially this year, we, as you know, are familiar with cohorts where we often offer different programs of study. This has over the years reflected additional certificates teachers wanted to earn or different master's degree. This year, we were very intentional that when we did that call for proposal with our partners, we specifically asked for cohorts for conditionally licensed teachers. And that is so that we could provide flexible pathways. So we were deliberate in saying to our university partners, our conditional licensed teachers need flexible times. They need hybrid models of, online and in person. You need to work directly with us so that teachers can use their practice as assignments and as meeting the requirements in your program. So we were successful working again together with Carla Simons in developing many more cohorts, which also then has the ease of direct billing and really provides that additional support because, as you mentioned, we wanted to eliminate some of the barriers that not only are they getting a new job and learning about their students, but now I got to go out and navigate how I find a program. By identifying those cohorts, we're also creating an opportunity where that is a part of onboarding. So when you think about that typical onboarding process that new educators have, where they come in, they're so excited, they sign their contract, they think about their benefits, we're adding this third piece to say, and now let us help you pick a program. And let's pick a program that is in partnership with us, that we know can offer supports in terms of flexible models and can offer that two-way communication. So what that means is then those supervisors from the university partners are working collaboratively with our consulting teachers, our staff development teachers, as well as members of our team, so that these conditionally licensed teachers really feel that that support is coherent. And then the last thing I will offer that we're doing to specifically support conditionally hired teachers, two things. We do offer differentiated professional learning. So throughout the year, we offer different workshops for them to come, again, talking about things like communicating with families, classroom management, as well as while they're learning the curriculum. In June, we did for our first year teachers going into their second year, prioritizing those conditional hires, we did what was called the Summer Step Up, where we engaged them in 2 full days of professional learning workshops for them in June when they have a little less on their plates. Students have left for the summer, but really to give them that summer step up. So now before you go into year 2, how can we strengthen your practice and really provide additional support so that you start your second year feeling that much more successful? And then last but not least, some of our conditional hires are conditional because they have not yet passed the assessments. So we do have a portion of our educators that we provide support plans for the new EdTPA assessment, which is more performance-based, but also support for how they can pass those assessments, because sometimes that is the next piece of support they need to become fully licensed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? One question for you,
Sure.
Dr. Shea. The consulting teachers and the educator retention teachers, are they solely focused on that aspect, or are they still in the classroom teaching some?
That's a great question. So consulting teachers, their full-time position is supporting new educators. So they are in somewhat of an itinerant model. They have client teachers across many schools in the district, and there are not teachers of record. So this is their full-time position. The educator retention position was a 0.5 addition to that staff development teacher position, making that a full-time in those Title I communities. Those individuals have some expectation of teaching at least one class or being in front of students every day, oftentimes because they're creating a model classroom within that school community. So that's a distinction between those 2 positions.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Delusky.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Can you just state, in terms of the educator retention position, which I think is a great idea, and I hope that it leads to positive results, is it currently just in the community schools as of now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The allocation, it's only in Title I or ATSI schools. And so even within that, when I told you that we used a formula, so in order for the grant to not be supplanting, we first did the formula allocation of the staff development teacher positions. That was based on the average number of new educators in that community, because we know that's differential across the system. And then if you were a Title I or ATSI school who, based on that initial formula, would have only qualified for a 0.5 based on your numbers, you got that additional scoop, if you will, of that educator retention teacher. So it's a subset of those Title I ATSI schools that qualified for that.
Well, that's great. And then is there any plan? I know there's the position of an equity liaison, which teachers can take on with sort of an additional responsibility, stipend, I guess it is. Are there any plans to offer a position of a retention teacher to a teacher to just provide services in the non-Title I and community schools? And thank
Yep.
you so much for everything.
Sure, of course. So as I said, this year, that has become a stated focus of that staff development teacher position. So we do have someone in every building who is charged with providing that coaching support. In terms of offering additional incentive for teacher leaders, two things I want to highlight that are really exciting. One is our career ladder. So our level 3 educators, these are teachers who have earned national board certification and have opted into the career ladder on level 3. We have asked them to identify who among that group of educators would be interested in mentoring other new teachers, since that's a big part of Blueprint, is to think about how do I then invest back in the profession by growing the educators behind me. And we had a great number of our level 3 career ladder educators who opted for that. So then they will be leveraged to support new educators who maybe serve in any school based on the content they teach or the community where they serve. We have also in the past offered, like any teacher in the building that wants to stay after school and help a new teacher. I will tell you that historically that is not as well utilized just because of all the challenges. Teachers have so many other commitments. We mentioned so many of these teachers are taking classes. And so it doesn't always result in that, even though it is still always on the table as something that we consider when it is appropriate. We really need to think about ways to partner with those job embedded opportunities as much as possible, just because of the other constraints on their time.
Thank you so very much.
Sure.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you, Dr. Shea.
So of course.
The next item on the agenda is measures of student progress and achievement. And for that, I call Mr. Mustapher and Mr. Landon.
Vice
Excuse me,
Chair Young, Mr.
Oh.
Handy has his hand up.
I'm sorry. Mr. Handy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rampone. Thank you, Mr. Young. Really just wanted to give a time check. I know we were scheduled to end at 5 o'clock. Also aware of the community conversation. I didn't know if any of the committee members were planning to attend. So just wanted to raise that. I know we do have Mr. Landon and Mr. Mustapher ready for this evening, but we did want to give this time check to see if we wanted to continue with the presentation or perhaps defer to our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Handy. Committee members? All right,
I'm
so
happy to stay on, and if I get to the community conversations a little bit late, but I'm happy to stay on. Thank you.
well, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just table this for our next meeting. That way, yes, people can participate in the community conversations. Mr. Landon, Mr. Mustapher, we will have you back for our next meeting. This way, staff will be prepared for the community conversation this evening. Mr. Handy, thank you for giving us the time check.
You're welcome, Mr. Young.
Okay, so the last item on our agenda is announcements. The next Equity Committee meeting with the Equity Council is scheduled for Thursday, September 25th, 2025. The next Equity Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 16th, 2025. Is there any further business? I'd like to thank everybody and our presenters. Hearing none, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good evening.